So, hello and welcome in our second episode in our podcast, The Cutting the Emotion. Today, our special guest is guest of honor. It's Stefan Moriarty. We're going to talk about his experience as a fighter and as a coach. Probably he will hate what I'm going to say, but I have for me, Stefan himself, it's a legend. Not only that he runs for so long this club, almost 30 years, but he's a really legend. So welcome, Stefan. Really, it's a pleasure, and thank you for taking the invitation.
Yeah, so Stefan is not only has a wide reputation as a fighter, he's also a coach and also has been a referee for a professional kickboxing organization in Fusion, and he also has lots and lots of experience in MMA as a referee as well. So today we're going to be asking him questions, and we'll see what your opinions are and answers are.
That's no problem, thank you.
Well, my first question is maybe it's kind of a natural question because you have been so long in martial arts as a fighter and as a coach. My question is first question: what sparked your interest in martial arts, and when this happened?
When? Okay, probably, I think I was about 7 or 8, and I remember obviously seeing martial arts movies. I remember watching Rocky. I remember watching Bruce Lee, and you're looking back at the early 80s, and it's a bit of a different generation than it is now, and didn't really have a lot of clubs or a lot of facilities back then, and you're kind of thinking, I'd love to try and get involved in that somehow. So obviously asked my parents stuff like that about joining, and nothing materialized. So that didn't kind of wane my interest by any means. So it was probably 4 or 5, maybe about 5, 6 years later, and my brother-in-law at the time was doing martial arts, and he invited me to go along to a class. So I went along to a karate class, enjoyed it, and he had started a he started in a taekwondo club in Loughnanstown, and he said, why don't you try that as well, see what you think of it. So I went to that, and it was basically that's kind of all she wrote. Then I was kind of fell in love with it from the start, and haven't really looked back since. So that's probably nearly 35 years ago. So that's
okay.
So you can blame Rocky, or you can probably blame Bruce Lee or something along those lines. But that kind of did push me in that direction.
Okay. So the first start you start with Taekwondo.
Taekwondo, yeah. I started in Loughnanstown Leisure Centre, and yeah, that was probably the first real insight I had into martial arts. And then from there, it was just really progression over the years, and just got involved in different styles. Some on purpose, some kind of by accident, and yeah, that kind of progressed into where we are today.
Very good. And just a question that obviously can be a little different for everybody.
Okay.
It's I know that there's a lot of new people that start out in martial arts, and the burning question is, what age do you think is too late to start to maybe pursue a professional career? Now, we understand that each fighter can develop at his own time and things click for him at his own time or her time. But what do you think would be too late for a professional fighter?
That's a good question. But it really boils down to the individual. Some people are natural athletes. Some people have a natural skill set when they get in there, and it just kind of maybe just needs a bit of fine tuning. Other people, it takes a bit longer. And the strange thing about martial arts, strange thing really about any sports, is there's no kind of time period on when someone's going to get good or reach a certain standard. And I think we've seen it in many different sports where people can excel very, very quickly, and then others might take what might seem like a lifetime to them. So it really just depends on what opportunities they kind of have around them at the time, and what type of club they're involved in at the time as well. So I wouldn't really rule it out at any stage. I'd just maybe say for the health risks would be probably more of a problem than the age group. So, But again, that all boils down to the individual. I know there was I can't really think of his name at the moment. There was an English fighter before who started quite late and made a good run of it. I think he might have even ended up in the UFC at the time as well, and he had only like 2 or 3 years training. So when you consider some people are training a lifetime or decades, and this person only had a couple of years and was able to make it to the big time then. So, but I suppose it really depends on what you do at the time as opposed to the amount of time that you have. I didn't really answer that question. I know I kind of went around it a bit, but that's probably the answer I can give at the moment.
So it depends of the person ability, person gifts as well to develop the martial arts. Would you think so? Because some people can, how you said, start very early, but achieve really after 10, 20 years some significant success. Then some people, how you said, this English guy in a few years.
You could probably get to, let's say, we'll just use 30 years of age for an example. You could probably get two people that would come in around the same fitness levels, the same age, no background whatsoever, and you might have one person that just flies through it, and it looks like a complete natural, and the other one might just be struggling with to grasp the insights of it, or just the day-to-day training. So I'd say it's just it's just more individual based. I wouldn't, for example, if someone comes down and joins our club and is maybe 20, 30, 40, whatever, I wouldn't rule out for anybody. We did have going back a couple of years ago, we did have a lad, Andy, that was training with us at the time, and he was, I think, late 20s, maybe heading for 30, and he went to a few boxing clubs because he wanted to get involved, and I don't think he had any background whatsoever, and he wanted to get involved, and then any club that he went to turned him away and said he was too old, and he ended up joining us, he ended up training with us, and then just the way the progression went along and just the way the opportunities that came about, he ended up getting a good few fights as well. So now they were on amateur level, but he was happy with that. That's all he really wanted to do. He wanted to kind of just tick those boxes to say that he had got the experience of competing. So there's probably a small example of it.
Here, earlier I didn't introduce myself. You have Ivan of the main host and that the co-host Kubi, and I like to say as well that we are both students of Stefan, and maybe we are a good example of what Stefan said. That, for example, I trained more than 5 years with Stefan, and I'm really happy with the club. The best place. I'm looking forward every time to go and train with him, which I thank him very much because the atmosphere and everything you create there, it's brilliant. Here I am training more than 5 years, but this young guy in front of me, he trained less than a year, and he, I think he make better progress than me. But it's Stefan who to say that. So it's in the context what Stefan said about the ability and all that. Stefan, I want to ask you. That's maybe a plain question, but in the same time interesting question. What was your toughest fight when you were a fighter? Or toughest fights to come up in your mind when you think of it for one or few?
It's when I kind of competed, and I competed abroad a lot in a small kind of space or a small period of time. So a lot of the fights kind of blended in together. So for example, one day we might have had maybe 3 or 4, and you're so kind of preoccupied in your own mind with just getting through the actual fights. You don't really. You've had a fight already as well.
Yes,
and you've had a few as well. So it's very hard to kind of recollect.
Which is a tough.
Which to be honest, I still have quite a bad injury at the time. So my main concern was kind of getting out without getting further injured. So rather than worried about the ins and outs of it. But obviously in Korea or in America, they would have been the toughest.
The toughest. That's why I was going to ask you next question. I just naturally came in my head that I know you Stefan fought from Korea through Europe and United States. That maybe the fights, you tell me that. Do you think that sometimes the fights is hard because it's a very hostile environment? And atmosphere, like in Korea, you experience that.
And not to put them down by any means, because the Koreans themselves treat us very well, and they're very like the Irish in a lot of ways. But I can understand from their point of view that when we kind of stepped into their club, that we were doing what they had done all their lives, and it was their art or their sport, and who are we to kind of think that we could mix it up
with them.
So probably a lot of the a lot of competitive edge would have been against them, trying to keep up with them. America, to a certain extent was tough as well, but to be honest, they're all tough in different ways. And I never remember kind of, having one specific opponent that you never want to go in against, because I never, anytime I was competing, and I wanted to try and tell our own members as well that you're not really fighting the person. You're implementing what you're going to do anyway. So you can try and kind of replicate other stuff like chess or snooker, let's say, or whatever. You get in and do what you have to do, and then your opponent's not going to get to do much at all, are they? So a lot of it was just based on that. But no, don't get me wrong, there was some. I did get a few hard smacks here and there off a good few people.
So you would advise everybody who is training and want to proceed even a career as a fighter that should not involve personal feeling towards the fighters. The other fighters I hate him, he beat me last time, I'm going to kill him now, and I
think the emotions can be probably your worst
enemy
at times, because just even a day-to-day kind of scenario or conflict, and you get into an argument with someone over whatever, parking space or whatever it may be, and how does your energy feel after it? Doesn't feel great, doesn't it? And that's only maybe a 30-second episode. So imagine trying to do that for whatever the required amount and the round is, 3 minutes or whatever, then going back to your seat and then going back out and do it again, you'd be worn out. So it does take it out of you. It takes it out of you in a lot of sense. And not only that, if your mind is so concerned on one particular emotion, whether it be anger or it be frustration or whatever it is, how can you implement anything that you want to do in the fight? You're not going to be able to. It's just going to be kind of a natural instinct for you to try and punch or kick or whatever you may need to do. So,
but you will make mistakes, letting these emotions to overwhelm you.
Easy. So I even remember, probably your fight as well, and definitely yours too as well. I remember even saying to you plenty of times, don't get emotionally involved with them. Don't. So let's say, for instance, we've been doing a lot of light contact stuff the last while because we want to try and get all our members at a certain level or a certain skill set and certain level of control. And occasionally you get someone that's a bit wild, or maybe the moment is getting a bit too much to them, or maybe nerves. Or, there could be 100 reasons why, and then all of a sudden they throw a punch that's too hard or a kick that's too hard. And then I always say to our own members that don't react, don't get emotional about it, because if you do, then it doesn't really turn into a contest anymore.
It's just pure hatred and display of look at me, I want to kill you and whatever. Okay, and the other question is, what kept you motivated all these years as a fighter? What was the main motivation or motivations?
Stubbornness, probably.
Stubbornness,
No, I just, since I started training, it was just something that I kind of felt I had in me, that it was just something I just needed to pursue on a daily basis. And whether it be just training, just trying to get my technique to a certain level, or trying to work on a combination of trying to improve my flexibility or whatever it may be, I always just sought that it was just a thing that I had to do on a daily basis, and it just became kind of as natural as anything. And I felt if I didn't do it, I felt I was missing something in my day, and that just kind of stayed with me for a long time. And then a lot of my competing, as I said, when I done it abroad, that when I was in Korea and I was in America, and then after that, as I kind of took a few risks with my injuries and stuff like that I didn't really feel the need that I had to compete too much at all. And then I was able to focus a lot of my energies on how to coach or how to teach, and through obviously whatever amount of years it is, and I like to think I'm still learning as we go as well, but my main focus then just became focused on teaching. And I was only saying it to Daryl and you yesterday.
I was there.
That when you're teaching, you're actually not just teaching the class, you're teaching yourself all over again. As well. Because you have to put it in the right sense, that if you're not explaining it correctly, well, you can't expect them to do it correctly, or if you're not demonstrating it correctly, you can't expect them to do it correctly either. So
It's a lot of challenges as well,
Yeah,
because you have
challenges,
different people, even when you train the kids, they're with different characters. Some are, I guess, less disciplined, the others are more, they can do silly stuff, including me and the adults. And me, I did one or twice silly things, like you said, stop the fight, and I continue fighting with my co-host here. I've involved emotions which I should not.
I think though the best motivation about it is seeing how people can transform very quickly. And I was even only again using yesterday as an example. We were talking to some lads that we're not just trying to develop a club or maintain a club or build a club. We're trying to build a sense of what a martial arts community is meant to be, and you know, the philosophy of martial arts and what people can learn from martial arts, and not just from a physical point of view, from a mental point of view as well. Because if you delve back centuries ago and use, let's say, the likes of the samurai, for example, they had a whole code of how they lived, and it was through martial arts. And it wasn't necessarily the fact that it was all through discipline or, you know, a strict regime that they had to conduct on a daily basis. It was basic decency and basic common sense, and you know, I think if everybody has that on a day-to-day basis, you can use it in any aspect of your lives. And I like to think we're doing that. But in regards to the motivation, it's definitely how you see some people coming in, and it's not just the kids or the adults. Like realistically, and I think any coach or teacher or sensei or whatever they like to address themselves as will say this as well. Sometimes people don't know their left from their right. Okay, sometimes people have no coordination. Sometimes people have no faith or confidence in themselves. And then over time, as you see them train, as you see them develop, and it brings it out of them. And I think that's enough motivation to kind of keep going every day. That if you can not just help yourself but help other people as well, then it's definitely worth it.
And even going back to where you're talking about building that community and being able to kind of take your mind off things. Personally, like I had my examinations, my junior cert last year. Training was such a big part of it. It wasn't me studying, it wasn't me, it was just martial arts was so different to what I would do in my daily life that it would not only help me take my mind off it, but because the atmosphere as well over there was really nice, and that's why I still train to this day. It just helped me out really well because I felt recharged, not only just physically but mentally as well, because I was playing football since the age of 3-4, and as you progress up to the higher leagues, it's this unnecessary pressure and stress. But the moment I started going to training more often, giving it a proper shot, I realised that was just better for me, and to be able to take my mind off things. And it's the sport itself, but it's also the people that are there and who's willing to help you out, and also how they treat you. So
there's a prime example of how it works for you.
Yeah,
definitely.
I thought not to ask you this question, but I'm going to ask you. I can't stop myself. Do you find some people in the club in the past or in the present day, that kind of let the temperament, the emotion goes overwhelmed in the training? Like, for example, what I did once or twice.
Twice. Just a few times, yeah. Yeah, it happens a lot. Sometimes.
And how you deal with that?
It's just trying to get them to focus on what they're trying to do. You know, a lot of people identify martial arts as is just purely fighting. It isn't. You know, it's martial arts is a way of just trying to attain perfection in the art itself. And if you're constantly fighting, well then you're constantly fighting yourself as well. Sometimes you just have to let it go. Just let it go and just focus on what you have to do. And then sometimes people's emotions are because of what's going on in their day-to-day life, or just stress from work or whatever it may be, and their main energy really isn't on what you're doing at the time. So
they bring this negative energy from outside, and
then sometimes they don't even do it on purpose. It's just
back of their head, and
whatever type of day they're having. So it's just over time. You just always we always use the term, you've probably heard it yourselves, where I just say just reset, just step back from it all and reset, or If you feel like things are getting a bit awkward, just step back and concentrate on your breathing for a couple of moments, then go back in again. Because it's like everything, you know what I mean? Like if you're writing on the page there and you make a mistake and if you can't rub it out, you'll just turn the page and you'll start again, you know?
Yeah.
So you just have the same kind of philosophy with training as well. Now, don't get me wrong, you get, unfortunately, on occasion, you just get one that sometimes just does not want to change or doesn't want to listen, but there's other avenues for them if they want to, you know? Yeah.
The other question is, we're talking about you fighting, and also we know you coaching for a long time, almost 3 decades, which is impressive. You start very young. You obviously had the ability and the knowledge. What did you find is the biggest differences between fighting and coaching, or one differences or many differences? The aspects are different, or
definitely.
You have to be more focused, or
so sometimes people can kind of separate the two of being a martial artist or be a fighter. So like martial artist is always trying to attain some level of perfection, even though it's meant to be impossible because you're always kind of chasing it, whereas a fighter is only training for a specific period of time. So as much as we have fighters within our gym environment, I like to address everybody as a martial artist first, because when you can't fight every day, you know. When there's not a fight on, what are you doing? You know, and sometimes that's what happens with people. But you often hear this term, especially the last couple of decades, of fight camp, and I'm going to start training for fight camp. I don't like that scenario or that term, because that means that a lot of people just think that it only takes maybe 10, 12 weeks. That's all you need to do to train for a fight. And then when you don't have a fight, you can go off and do whatever you need to do. But in reality, it's not the 10 or 12 weeks that gets you ready for the fight.
It's much longer.
It's all the training that you're doing where you don't think you're getting any better. When you're in there, okay, and you're maybe repetitively kicking, or you're on the bag and you're repetitively doing anything, and it's when you think that you're not improving is when you're actually improving. So when your mind is not, when you're training for a fight, your mind is purely focused on a fight. It's not purely focused on training.
It's like anything in life, you can't achieve great things in 1 day or 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Rome wasn't built for 1 day, and for example, and you cannot become ready for a fight in 12 weeks.
Yeah, no, I'd much rather that people train for the purpose of training. Okay, because if you train for the purpose of training, that's where all the results happen. That's where all the progress is made. Okay, getting ready for a fight, great, that's no problem. I understand the philosophy of people having to, you know, up their training or tweak it a little bit, especially with a fight coming around. And obviously there's a lot of things you have to take into consideration, their fitness levels, their condition levels, what strategy you're going to do, all that kind of stuff. That's fine, but it doesn't end when the fight ends. And that's, a lot of people think that that's that done now, and then it's just gone. You know, if you're training consistently on a consistent basis all the time, you're making improvements without even knowing it. Okay, martial arts is the type of art where you make improvements that you can't see. Alright, and in other sports you can kind of see it, because if you're playing football and you're pressing free kicks, let's say, and you're got 6 out of 10 last week, now I'm getting 9 out of 10, so you clearly see it. Whereas martial arts is different in that sense, that it's hard to gauge it on a scale. But it's something that everybody will feel when they're training. And it's happened before, even, you know, as a kid or as a teenager, and I was training a lot. I probably trained too much, to the sense that I burnt myself out so many times and just didn't know what was happening, if you know what I mean. I just didn't have the knowledge of what burning yourself out was. But I've had it numerous times where I was training and I felt like I was getting absolutely nowhere. I felt like I was getting worse rather than better. And then one day it'll just click. And when I say it'll click, it's just, you can just feel it. And everything kind of goes according to plan, and you only get that from training.
Okay.
Yeah.
And continuing on the topic of coaching, what would be your personal favourite thing about coaching? That one thing that just gives you that feeling of just sense of pleasure out of coaching? What would be the one thing?
You'd love to say obviously the successes that you get from it, you know, but as you said, martial arts sometimes isn't just, you can't fight every day, unfortunately. You can't coach someone every day to fight, or there's not a competition on every day or anything like that. So as much as the successes are great, which is really obviously rewarding in the sense that you see people that you think never would have fought before and they're stepping in there and they're achieving what they'd set out to. It would have to be just when you're in the club every day, you're in there and you see people that come in and they won't, especially the kids, their confidence level sometimes is just zero. You know, they don't really want to communicate with people. They don't really know whether they're there, or probably the parents are probably sending them there. And for them to come out of their shell and gain the confidence that they need to, because like we can all remember being in school as kids, you know, it's not exactly I'm sure it's different now, but you know, it is daunting for the kids as well. Everything's new, you know. You have to go into a new environment, you have to make new friends, all that kind of stuff. So I think the most rewarding is to see the kids, how they transform.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Okay, because obviously the success levels with the fights, see a new fight ever is great, see a new fight is great, everybody in the club, that's brilliant. But we don't have that all the time. But what we do have all the time is how you see the kids growing from, you know, a shy kid into a confident young man or young lady, whatever it is, and being able to use their skills to be able to, you know, just get by day to day and do some other sports or other activities.
Yeah, and also the follow-up question to that is, what would be the biggest difference when you're coaching the kids and when you're coaching an adult class or a teenage class where they kind of are more cognitive and know what's going on?
The kids are probably easier.
Really?
Yeah, the kids are easier.
I thought it's the other way around, but no.
No, the kids are easier because the kids are honest to themselves.
Yeah.
You get me? Like adults, let's face it, we're not always honest with ourselves, you know, and the kids are, I won't get too much into that, but the kids are easier because they've no fear. Kids have no fear either, you know, they've no limitations on themselves. We always put limitations on ourselves all the time, you know, whether it be.
Yeah, and this is, I remember one thought, I don't remember who said it, that actually the childhood finish when we realize that we are mortal. And that's why when we realize that we are mortal, we put limits to ourselves.
Yeah, straight away. The kids don't. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some kids that, as we just said in the previous question, that their confidence isn't really where we want it to be. And, you know, but that comes in time. But when you get into that level, kids don't have any problems at all. Did you see me yesterday with the kids? Some of the kids.
Some of the kids were fantastic.
Yeah, and trying to get the adults to do that, and what happens sometimes with the adults is just plain refuse to do it. And I don't mean refuse to do it as in if you say do 10, they'll do 10, but they won't really do 10.
Yeah,
with
any, the heart.
Yeah, with any confidence or heart in it, whereas the kids kind of will. So,
I mean, next question is, you more or less answered it, but how it feels when somebody who you train won really tough victory, and it was really big victory, because we must say it, you train world champions, recently the K1 all Iron champion, and so obviously you're a great coach. I know from my own experience, I mean, and I have seen it. And what is the feeling when one of your guys win a tough victory, and you know you train him for so many years, and finally he won and he's on the top,
I think
or she's on the top?
Yeah, I think it's the realization that what you've seen at one stage coming to life, because sometimes it doesn't matter how many times you tell people what they're capable of, unless they actually believe it themselves. It mightn't happen. So it's probably an accumulation of what you can see at an early stage, or maybe at a later stage, and all of a sudden you'll see that little bit of a spark where you know that they have something, you know, and you think that they are capable of achieving a lot more than they realise. And then through the training, no fight camp, through the training consistently, you know, you'll obviously work on things that you need to work at, but you'll see their confidence growing, you know, and sometimes their confidence doesn't grow, sometimes they hit rock bottom, which is great, because you need to know exactly okay, how far they can go and how far they can't, because some fights are difficult, and I don't mean the sense in the physical way. They can be. Some fights you can obviously get seriously hurt in, but a lot of fights it's mentally, because they might find it difficult just to deal with a certain thing.
Yeah.
Like you could be fighting somebody and it could be as awkward as anything,
Mm-hmm.
or you just can't get past their kicks, hands feel like they're too fast or whatever for you. So it's just trying to break all that type of thing down in class, which we try to do in different scenarios, and just letting them know that they have the ability to be able to surpass whatever's happening in the rounds. And when you see that happen, and then there's no better thing than seeing it happen in a live event where they're either winning a fight or winning the title or on the world stage, whatever. You know, I'm more happy for them than anything. You know, it's proof that, you know, that they could do it from day one. So
Yeah.
And maybe without standing question, but how you feel almost coaching 30 years? How you feel like it's it went like 3 days or 3 years? It's so quick, and
sometimes it feels like,
even though you had a lot of achievements, I mean, amazing and astonishing achievements with your fighters, and
sometimes it feels like there's it's almost like a dream at times. It's that far away that you kind of go, did that really happen? And then other times it just feels like it's just like a flash. It's just where that,
like a life goes so quick.
Where that time go. And we've been, like, anyone who's been in the club or has been in the club, you know, the last kind of decade or two, been through a lot of changes in the club. You know, we've transformed a lot. We've had to move a few times and things like that. So I don't know, maybe that's freshened it up. You know, because sometimes they say change is as good as the rest. I don't know. But when I look back, when I first started training martial arts, it feels like a dream. But then if you look at all the various achievements that we've had, sometimes you have to kind of go, did that happen? Or it's just kind of like a flash.
But also, I mean, it's like a marriage or a community or whatever. When you have difficulty, the club, also you see who is loyal.
You do, yeah.
Who will stick with the club in the difficult times.
Absolutely.
And who, you know, do you think?
Yeah, you do. It's now I know obviously people have a lot of their own stuff going on, and sometimes it's like if you give too much of a burden on someone else, you already have enough going on, and it's too much for them, which I understand. But at the same time, our club is only as strong as its members. You know, there's no point in saying, I think I've even said this before, that as good as would be me being down in Dun Laoghaire and down in our club, and then me like moving around the mats going, this is great, you know. But if I've nobody there to train with, it's nothing, you know. It really isn't. So the club, our club in Dun Laoghaire, it's all about the members, you know, from the youngest to the oldest, and that's what makes it tick, really, you know. It's and again, like if we were to get all the kids, get all the adults, all the teenagers, get them all in and ask them what they want to get out of martial arts, you might get 100 different answers. And that's brilliant, you know, because
you can see it from different angles.
People are getting different things out of it for different reasons, and that's what it's about. So it's all about the members.
And now shifting the topic from coaching to your experience as a judge and referee, what got you into that, getting into that type of environment?
I would start. Usually what happens was, years ago when you'd run a small type tournament, and you might run it between a couple of clubs, usually the case was that anyone that, you know, had a certain amount of experience or rank or whatever it may be, you would have said, right, okay, you jump in and judge these ones, or you jump in and referee, and that's how it started in regards to gaining experience. And that would have been back in my back in the Taekwondo days, and then from there it just kind of fell into place where sometimes you turn up to an event and they might just be short to judge or short to referee, and they say, look, will you help us out? And it was probably the best way of getting experience, because you didn't have any time to think about it. You know, you just went and done it. And then I'm sure I've probably made mistakes in the past in regards to judging or refereeing or whatever, but it's only through those hours and hours and fights that you kind of start to see the type of blueprint that you need and what's necessary to be able to judge. And then from there, it was just because you're kind of, maybe you've been seen at events, and the more you're seen, the more experience you get, and the more experience you get, sometimes you just get the offer saying, look, would you be around to help out with the events down? I still do it on occasion, not as much as we used to do it because the club has got a lot bigger. But I still enjoy it to a lot, and I'd like to think that I've learned a lot about fighting as well, just from judging and refereeing, because you look at it from a different point of view. You know, when you watch a fight as a coach or watch a fight as a fighter or a spectator, you look at it completely different than a judge, and I think that's helped us a lot when it comes to training our own fighters as well, because you get to, once you kind of have a basic knowledge of the scoring criteria and what's needed to successfully win a fight in kickboxing or MMA or whatever style it is. Once you have that base of knowledge of what's needed, then you can implement it into your coaching. And so the more you know about how to score and how to score effectively, well then, by right, the fighters should be a bit more effective at it as well.
Yeah, and out of the two, since you've done both, which would you prefer more? Being a referee, being in the actual cage or in the ring, or being on the sidelines as a judge and looking at the points also?
I think I prefer being a judge. Yes, yeah. I've done a good bit of refereeing in fairness. I've done more judging. I've probably thousands of fights now at this rate. And I've refereed probably maybe nearly half, no, maybe a third. Yeah. And I've probably judged 2/3. But again, when you're judging, when you're refereeing, there's two main concerns. One is to keep both fighters safe. Yeah. Okay, and two is to make sure you fight within the rule set. Yeah. So that's your main concern. But when you're judging, you not necessarily have to worry about that. Yeah. So you can kind of sit back and then you can look. Well, obviously, what's required from the scoring criteria point of view, and you can really analyze the fight a lot better. Yeah. So that's probably from, if you want to call it a scientific point of view or whatever, I probably prefer the judging element of it.
And would that be the reason why sometimes you might watch a fight on the TV and then some of the fans that are watching it might disagree with the judges? It's just because that they're not looking at it the same way that the judge is looking at.
Yeah. You see, what does a fan watch a fight with? Watch it with emotion. Yeah, exactly. Don't they? Yeah. They get involved in the fight, don't you? You all do. Yeah. Whatever it may be. Yeah. And that always happens. You know, they get involved emotionally, and you don't. You see, the weird thing about the scoring criteria is you can almost win a fight, but not win it by the scoring criteria. Yeah. So you can win the fight from a layman's point of view. It looks like that you've done more. It looks like you've outworked them. It looks like you've out-hit them, whatever it may be. But when you actually analyse the scoring criteria, it's probably the complete opposite. Yeah. So,
and would that be when you have the people's champ, where people are always voting for him, maybe due to his explosive and very entertaining fight style, and also?
No, I think it's the internet has caused it.
Okay.
That everyone's an expert. Honestly, that's
Yeah.
You have it in everything.
In history, you see historians the thoughts they're showing there, and you can see for the comment that they haven't read 2 books. Yeah. And in martial arts, everybody thinks he's expert and making comments in the internet. They probably never even went training.
No, and that's the scary thing about it, because how would you say? When I started training, there might have been only 3 or 4 clubs in the area, and everybody kind of knew of who was who. So there's a bit of more of an old school approach to it, that even if you didn't train with them, you knew of each other. Yeah. But just there's so much going on now on the internet. And obviously the amount of people that can travel and all. It's hard to keep track of at times. What's going on. So. Yeah, but the internet is a big thing.
And also here, I heard it from so many people. And would you think it's true that nowadays, especially UFC and in boxing also, that rude behavior, obnoxious behavior even, selling better before the fight in the conference, insulting each other? They said that sells better.
It probably does, because you have to remember the ones that really want to watch it are the fans, and the reason fans watch it is because of the emotion involved. They love all that, and you can't blame it. I'm more old school, that I like the martial arts way and
Yeah.
you know the honor and respect, and that's just me. But I can see why people love the whole hype and you know people throwing things at each other before a fight.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't allow it in our own club, but
Yeah.
that's not to say it doesn't work. You can see by the stats.
Yeah.
The people that view things, they love seeing that. You know, and I suppose it comes down to human nature. Everybody wants to have a good guy and a bad guy, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so even the comic books have them.
Yeah.
So if you have them in fights, even better. You know.
Yeah.
And what do you think, Stefan, of what is more important, maybe both in the same time, to learn to control your emotions when you fight, or to improve your techniques?
In fighting or in training?
And both.
I'd say both of them can be kind of implemented in training
Mm-hmm.
and then try to bring them into a fight. Now don't get me wrong, sometimes you need a little bit of emotion.
Yes,
Now,
right.
it's only, but it has to be in balance.
Yeah.
Okay, because
That's why it's martial art.
yeah, sometimes what happens in fights that sometimes people are a little too timid, you know, or they're a little too aggressive, and you need that bit of balance.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's that little bit of aggression that might get them over the edge. So it really boils down to knowing who your fighter is, okay, and knowing who you're training.
Another follow-up question would be, what would you prefer? Maybe a new person was to come in and they're fighting, you're preparing them for a fight, but would you prefer them to see, obviously, before you put them in a full contact, they might have a few light contacts behind them. Would you prefer your fighter to, you know, just at the back of your head that they might be a little bit more aggressive or a little more timid, shy, and maybe just lack that tiny bit of confidence? Which one of the two would you like to have as a coach, and you see your fighter and be like...
It's a tough one, because sometimes if they're a bit too timid, you're almost trying to kick a little bit of life out of them. But at the same time, if they're a little bit too aggressive, it might be hard trying to reel them back in. You know?
I hope
So-
two of us, we haven't been like that. And that's why I was smiling.
No, look, I've been there myself before. Like, but I probably before my starts, I probably had a bad temper as well. So I know where the emotion comes into it, and I probably know, from experience as well, that you don't really need to use your emotion. You want to be as calm as possible. You want to be as clear as possible, because the thing is as well, 99% of the people that think they can fight can't fight. They can't. Like,
They're just overconfident
yeah,
and
they actually can't
dreamers.
fight.
Yeah.
So most of the time, if they're going to try and fight, you can be sure that they don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So you really want to know what you're doing then.
Yeah.
And that's why it's always good, well, if you can master it, to be calm and in situations like that, because and again, the thing, a lot of fights won't last very long either. Whether it's stand up or goes to the ground, it's irrelevant, because it's mainly that reason that they can't fight. And I'm sure you might have one or two comments in your podcast say, well I can. Well,
Yeah.
they can fight in the sense of what they consider fighting, but they actually can't.
Yeah.
So that's why I think more and more people should get involved in some sort of combat sports, because they learn the discipline and they learn the need that it's better not to fight
Yeah.
than to actually fight. And I think if more people are like that, you know, we'd have a lot less aggravation in the world, you know, because the majority of people don't know how to fight, don't want to fight, because they don't want to hurt anybody.
They also see it as a game maybe sometimes, because when you're getting taught how to do it correctly and do it in a more safer manner, you see what also can go horribly wrong.
Yeah, it's very easy, like for a little incident over whatever it may be, can go wrong very, very quickly. And you know, a lot of people, obviously different scenarios or whatever, but a lot of people just don't want a life-changing event over a moment where you could have just been calm and just
ignore the situation.
just
walk
ignore
away.
it. Yeah, so I think obviously you can't speak for everybody in martial arts, and I'm sure there's a few bad eggs like there is in everything, but the majority of people that I know that are quite competent at martial arts or any type of combat sports would have that ability to be able to just ignore it or walk
Yeah.
away because they
I don't know, it's come up to my mind, sorry, this
your fight again.
no, I remember one accident in Dun Laoghaire, and really everybody can learn from how you react, because it was this guy out of his head. I don't know if he was drunk or on drugs or maybe both. And we're doing a bit of work. I was there, and the other junior coaches, and he was very aggressive, very abrupt. He was really provocative, using bad language. But you stay as calm as anything and just walk away. And that's itself. This episode is something to learn.
Yeah.
You know that I knew you can. I don't want to use the word kill, but you could have just in a second to be down on the ground, but no, just you ignore it and walk away.
Yeah, you kind of know. You know when someone's going to fight and where someone's giving you the appearance that they want to fight. There's a big difference. A lot of people don't like to lose face. Let's face it, they don't. They don't want to lose face. They don't want their ego to be hurt. They don't want their reputation to be hurt, whatever it is. You can understand that. You know, might be their family, there might be their girlfriend beside them, whatever it may be. That's fine. But a lot of people will give you the appearance that they want to fight. Deep down, a lot of them probably don't.
No.
So you will know there's a point where there's like a point of no return where it's going to be a fight.
Yeah.
And you know where it's just someone being a, you know what, like so.
Yeah.
You have to then. And we're coming to the end of our interesting interview with Stefan Moriarty. I just want to ask you, what do you think? Should the politics be interfering with sports?
No, but unfortunately it's that age-old thing, isn't it? They interfere with everything. You know, there's I don't know if it's personalities, if it's someone's reputation, they feel that other people shouldn't have the same status as them. I don't really know. It's the age-old thing, but especially in Ireland in general, actually, it's very political at times. So no, it's very unfortunate because there's a lot of good people in martial arts, and through I don't know whether it be personalities or personal differences or whatever it may be, that won't work together. You know, and for such a small island, like we're seriously punching above our weight. You know, I think, and I said it a long time ago, I think we're the best in the world when it comes to fighting. Okay, and I know a lot of people would argue about that, and you'd say, oh no, you need to go to Thailand, or you need to go to Holland, or you need to go to here, or whatever. And yeah, all these countries are great, and all these countries have superb coaches and fighters, but I do think we're the best. You know, and if more and more people could learn to work together, could you imagine our capabilities then? But I don't think we'd be getting rid of politics and
No.
Maybe politics should be involved only to support more these sports, the martial arts side, because I don't know, you know better than me. We're not going to criticize previous government or government now. It's not a political problem, but not today anyway. But do you think that the state could support a bit more the martial arts? With facilities or whatever, you know.
For sure, and I do think that only recently though martial arts has probably gained more kind of recognition. Beforehand, even when I started teaching full time, there might have been only like I think 2 or 3 full time facilities in Ireland at the time. And even when I did teach full time, some people regarded it as a hobby. It was just something you just do on the side. You know, there's no mindset in regards of what's needed to kind of get it onto the next level. And I don't know if it was just a lack of knowledge or ignorance or whatever it may be. That's fine, but there's so many other mainstream sports in Ireland. And when you're competing with stuff like that, it's quite difficult. I did toy with the idea of trying to do seasonal, but because martial arts is a daily intake or a daily outtake, whatever way you look at it, it's difficult to do it that way. But I did have and I still do have a concept involved because we do different martial arts, as you know, that we could kind of gradually do seasonal with one style, moving into the next, moving into the next. We'll keep it fresh and we'll keep it keep people involved.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't clash necessarily with all the other sporting events, because when we're holding an event, for example, and especially if you want to get the kids involved or the adults, whatever way you want to look at it, that you have to bear in mind that what else is on? You know, most likely they're going to have a football match or a GA match or a rugby match or swimming.
That's what I was going to say. Like you know better than me, but I never saw. Maybe there is, but for example, the state provide a nice hall for training of my MMA. I haven't heard and I haven't seen. You correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe they are.
No, not in Ireland anyway. No.
And I think it's wrong, in my humble opinion.
When I was in Korea, they had. I don't know the exact ins and outs of it because of the language barriers and stuff like that. But they had a system in place where it was taught in the schools and they could do it after school as well. And I'm pretty sure that was funded by the government at the time. Now, I can understand because that was their national sport. Our national sport is GAA. So I can understand where different funds go in through different avenues. But in regards to our success rate and what we can produce here, you really think that we could have a lot more support. Like look, for example, Katie Taylor's fighting this weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
And our national broadcaster can't even put it on the telly, you know. And without a doubt, Katie's probably our best sports person at this moment in time.
It's a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, and you wouldn't meet a nicer person, and you know, so talented,
and I'm sure thousands, if not million people in Ireland would like to watch this match.
Of course they would,
yeah.
Because it's hard to get a ticket. So they said, Jesus, I want to watch it on the telly. At least.
Yeah, remember as a kid watching Barry McGuigan win the world title. And he fought in England and he beat Pedroza. It was 85 I think, or whatever year it was. And I got to watch that on TV. And this was, you know, back before satellite or whatever they call it now. And nothing. You know, but yeah, if she wins, which we hope she will, I'm sure you'll have all the politicians as usual out looking for the photo opportunities. But look, it's probably, I'm sure there's plenty of sports out there. Like look at the rowers in Cork. Like I don't think they're the best in the world. They probably don't get the funding. Maybe they do. I don't know. But you know, I'm sure there's probably 10 other examples in other sports in Ireland as well.
Yeah, but again, you think of it because I know it's a lot of people are training martial arts and a lot of people like training. And
I think sport in general though is just
but it's not being founded there for that.
Like look at the League of Ireland, the football.
Yeah.
You know, like that's been left by the wayside. You know, there's just plenty of sport in Ireland, and not just martial arts. And we are good at sport. We are. There's no doubt about it. And you think they just funnel these funds, which they probably say there's none of, but we all know there is, into these because you're building foundations for the youth, and they're always going on about crime and figures and drug use and all that kind of stuff. Well, there's loads of examples where you could fund it that people will have more opportunities.
Absolutely. And don't go to the wrong way in life. Well, I really thanking you for coming to our podcast today. Really enjoyable, very interesting, and thank you very much, Stefan.
Thank you
for joining us today. Thank you very much as well.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
And also thank you to everybody that's watching us currently. So if you've enjoyed the video, hit the subscribe and like button, and if you want to get notified on any future episodes with many different topics, also hit the notification bell, and we'll catch you on the next one.